Hi, welcome everyone. I see some people are joining us, so please just jump right on in and we are going to get started. Welcome to Rise Up, 3 practices to find balance and purpose for impactful women in a post-COVID world. And I'm Ashley Barnes, and I'm here with Erin Myers, and she'll introduce herself here in a second. We are the co-founders of the Intuitive Leadership Center, which I know the ladies in my group haven't heard about yet, so more information to come for you. But today, we are going to be talking all about you and us and balance, and getting you some tips and tools to really help create and maintain a sense of balance, which I think I can speak for a lot of us by saying that is a real struggle right now. It was a struggle before COVID. It is a struggle during COVID with all of everything that's been going on. And I think for a lot of us, it's going to remain a struggle unless we put some practices in place. So over the next 3 days together, we're going to share 3 practices that's going to help all of us to clear some of those activities in our lives that are just not serving us anymore. And we're going to learn how to proactively, or how to eliminate our shoulds. You maybe heard that phrase, don't should on yourself. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We are going to help you connect with the situations that cause stress in our lives and how to proactively reduce their impact. And then we are going to create a plan to enhance and maintain our overall sense of well-being. So after this course is over, we can still maintain this sense of balance that we've created over the last 3 days. And the reason I say us so much is because Erin and I both have experienced our fair share of imbalance over the years. For me, I have always been a doer. I power through, I get things done, I'm pushing myself to the point where, I don't even always ask if these are the things I should be doing or if they're even things I want to do. And I have, over the years, really suffered because of that. Back in my 30s, which sounds like forever ago, I mean, to be fair, that was 15 years ago now, but I had a really bad case of adrenal fatigue. I was just pushing and going and doing all the things, and I just found myself really completely exhausted. I could not keep my eyes open at work, like literally falling asleep at my desk. But then on the flip side, I couldn't sleep at night. I was up all night because I wasn't getting that. I had that cortisol imbalance. I could just barely function. And so I had to completely overhaul my entire life. I had to change my eating habits because I frankly was eating a lot of crap. I had to change my exercise. I was a runner, and running is just so hard on your body when you're exhausted anyways. But I liked running. I didn't necessarily want to quit doing that. I had to look at my relationships, the ones that were causing me stress and the ones that were really valuable for me. My boundaries, really, I had to look at everything and really make some major changes to come back into balance. And the good and bad part about that is that, it didn't have to come to that extreme. Had I known some practices, had I been able to put some things in place, some of the things that we're going to be talking about, I wouldn't have maybe gotten to that place. But because I did, I now have the opportunity to share some of the things I have practiced and put into place over the years that have really helped me stay more or less in a better sense of balance. So that's enough about me. I know that Erin has a similar story to tell, and I know you'd love to hear from her. And for those who don't know her from my group, you will give the opportunity to meet my friend Erin. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Oh, let me put myself on solo. We're learning this. We are learning how to make all of this happen on StreamYard. I love it because it's a lot more interactive. And so just a few admin pieces before I jump in and introduce myself. I wanted to make sure that those of you that are watching on Facebook Live, because I see there are at least four of you that are steadily on here watching on Facebook Live, go ahead and drop your name in the comments. We would love to know who you are. You can interact that way. Those of you that are in the StreamYard virtual room with us, you can go ahead and turn your camera on if you feel comfortable. You can unmute at any time and ask questions. We want this to be interactive and discursive, and to make this really kind of like a group coaching session as we move through these exercises. So feel free to do so. And I will be showing banners as we go along as well. So ask your questions. Aw, thank you. Someone said, Erin is my hero. All right, and welcome, Cindy. Hi, Shelly. Great to meet you as well. So thanks, everybody, for hopping on. And I'll be sharing some of those comments if you have questions or interactions as well as we go along. So I am Dr. Erin Myers, and I am just so excited to combine my coaching and consulting practice with Ashley's coaching and consulting practice to create this third kind of group. So we both have our own separate companies still, but now we've created the Intuitive Leadership Center. And really, our plan is to empower women through the integration of leadership development and feminine energy. Because as we transition from this COVID world back slowly into the workplace, we are going to lose a lot of the benefits. Oh, and hold on, let me add Linda to the stream as well. So we are going to lose a lot of the benefits that we have gained from the COVID situation. And I don't mean that lightly, because I had, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, one of the worst times of my life. I hit rock bottom at the beginning of COVID. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that story, but there are some positive things that have come out of this from a leadership perspective as well. So whether you're a leader being an entrepreneur or a leader in the corporate world or wanting to be a leader, it doesn't matter. As long as you consider yourself a leader, you are one of us as part of the Intuitive Leadership Center. And so having toddlers on your lap, the dogs barking in the background, the ability to work from home freely or transition back and forth between the workplace, that's what we are looking to integrate as we move back into this post-COVID world. But first and foremost, we need to figure out how to better balance our lives. And this has been a crazy year of absolute imbalance, at least for me anyway. So at the peak of COVID, when it was just starting, I should say, I was 7 weeks postpartum. I'd been back at work at a professor at a local university for literally 5 days before I got sent home. And suddenly daycares were shutting down. I had 3 kids who at the time were 3, 1.5, and then 7 weeks. My husband was an essential worker and a pilot, cargo pilot, carrying PPE all over the world. So he was gone. And so I was trying to work 50 hours a week from home, sometimes more than that, with 3 toddlers on my lap and my hormones just raging. And so I completely broke, and I got diagnosed with severe postpartum anxiety and moderate postpartum depression. And I was literally crying when I picked up the phone to call the psychologist and say, I need help. Because for me, as someone in a really masculine world, that was difficult. I'm an Air Force veteran. I was in, academia, which is still very masculine, still very bureaucratic. And that was hard for me to pick up the phone and say, I need help. But through that, I have learned so much about myself. I have become better balanced. And so now we're going to go through some exercises together to kind of refine that balance as we slowly start to transition into this post-COVID era. So, all right, there's my long diatribe. I'm going to go ahead and say hello to the rest of you as well. So hi, Mari. So nice to meet you. Hi, Jennifer. Sheila, no problem. Chase your puppy. That's all part of this, right? And then if you're listening at work, no big deal. Oh, and there's Mari. We're going to add her into the stream as well. So that's what we are all here for. Ashley, can you hear that echo? I'm still hearing it.
I do hear a little bit of noise. It's not terrible.
We're going to have to work on that. Thank you for giving us grace as we deal with these technology issues. But we're going to dive into knowing our values. So it's important to understand and ground ourselves in the values, because our values are what drive us. And so if you registered for this course, then you received a workbook in your email. You also, if you gave us your telephone number for the text reminders, there's a link in the text that we sent out 10 minutes before. If you did not register, you can go ahead and drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure that we get that workbook to you. But in that workbook, on that second page, is a list of values. And I'm going to screen share here and share that workbook with us, if I can make this happen properly. But go ahead and open it up to the list of values. And what we're going to do, and I can't easily do it, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but we're going to go ahead and take 2 minutes and circle all the values that we feel describe us. And these are just what you resonate with. So in a moment, we're going to just kind of shut everything down, go ahead and go through and just circle all the words that feel good to us. From there, we're going to transition and kind of dig a little bit deeper into these values. But some key things to remember are that values change over time, and they deepen as we begin to understand ourselves better, understand our values better, what drives us. They're always moving. They can also be situational. So stop overthinking it. Because if you're anything like me, you're going to sit there and you're going to hover over one and be like, oh, I don't know, sometimes in this situation, sometimes not in others. Stop it. Don't do it. Just go through and circle all the ones that feel good to you in this moment. All right, let's go ahead and take those 2 minutes to do that.
And Erin, I don't know if you saw, there's at least one person who's wanting to receive the workbook. And for anybody, maybe Shelly or whoever is asking for it who doesn't have it, you don't have to have a list of values, right? You can just list off the things that you know are of value to you. So if you don't have that right in front of you, just make a list of the things that you know are of value to you. I know it does help to kind of have a mind jog, but and Erin's got that up now, so even better. But don't let not having a list keep you from doing this practice, because I think inherently we know what things drive us. We know what's really important to us. And like I said, some of those things may not be on this list, and they may be coming up for you anyways. So just think it through, but don't overthink it.
All right, so start to wrap up. If you haven't completely finished, that's no big deal. Likely, if you haven't finished, you're overthinking it a little bit. So we have to put a timeline on this somewhere. And Shelly, I did notice that you would like the workbook. We're going to make sure you receive that. But the other thing is, if you want to go ahead and just put the link to register here. And the reason I would ask you to register is if you want to receive text notifications for when we're going live over the next few days as well, you can go ahead and do that. But we'll get that workbook sent to you regardless. Okay. So hopefully that was a relatively easy exercise, something kind of fun. You go through, you like confidence. I like that. I like to have a challenge. Great. I'm independent. Perfect. I live with integrity. Wonderful. You kind of circle and you think about that. And you probably may be looking back going, man, I have a lot of circles. And that's okay, right? That's just what resonates with you in the moment. Or you may be on the flip side of that and you may think, I'm just having one of those days. I know I'm having one of those days. I'm feeling a little down. And I circled like maybe 6 to 8 words because I'm not feeling those other ones. And that's great too. So as I said, these values change over time. They can be situational. So I encourage all of us to go back and revisit this list at multiple times, especially as our situations change. And remember that this values list, it's only to give you some ideas and some examples of values. There are blank lines there. As you come up with more of your own, you can easily write those down, jot them down, and go back and recircle and revisit the ones that resonate. So now we're going to transition, and we're going to start the 5 most important values from all of those that we circled. So you've circled all the ones that resonate, but now go back and let's narrow that down a little bit more. Let's star our top 5. And this is where, if you're like me and you circled about 40 of these things, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to narrow it down. But again, don't overthink it. Think about your situation right now and the 5 values that you want to embody for the rest of the day. Let's go ahead and take a few moments to do that. So as you're finishing that up, what I'd like to do, that was a strong echo that time. We're going to have to figure this out. But as we're finishing this up, let's go ahead and have Ashley and I kind of share a little bit about our values and what it means for us. Because really what it comes down to is that these values are what should be driving our energy and our activities every single day. So I know for me, one of my biggest ones is integrity. I like to lead with integrity and to be honest and open with everybody and to make sure that I empower people in a way that really resonates and works with me and who I am. And so that's something I've always had to work on. Integrity first has always been pounded into my head as an Air Force veteran. And it was always about pleasing someone else and being honest with someone else. But one of the things that my big break in this last year has taught me is I need to make sure that I am honest with myself as well. That every single one of my actions is true to who I am and true to who I want to be and the way I want to lead my life. Ashley, do you want to chime in with one of yours?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking there's a reason that we are working together, because that has been my big awareness over the last year too. And I was kind of making a list of my top 5 or 6 here, and authenticity has been what's been coming up for me so strong lately. Just thinking about how many things in my life have been out of alignment with what I know I really want to do, what I know feels really good, but still putting myself, like I said, that power through mentality, got to do things because they're the quote right thing to do, and how it's really out of alignment with my core need, my core value to really live in a really authentic way. And that's what I teach. So that's out of alignment with that too. So really doing this work for me has brought me back into awareness of how important that is for me for my own sense of balance. And it's really been coming up lately too.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to try something with regard to the echo. I'm going to mute you. Does that help the echo? Yes, that was it. Okay. So if you could just mute yourself in a positive way as I speak, just to help us, and we'll try to go back and forth and make sure that I'm muting when you're talking and you're muting when I'm talking. Okay. Ooh, I feel like my head is clear. Again, thank you for your grace as we work through these issues. I've never had this issue with the echo in StreamYard before, so I appreciate your grace. All right. So now we have found our top 5. And again, you can go back to this. You don't have to have done it in this really short, condensed period of time. Go back and really think through this if you couldn't easily come up with your top 5. And what we want to make sure that we do is center all of our life activities around our values. So today we're talking about clearing. And we're talking about clearing those things that we really shouldn't be doing, which Ashley is going to transition into here in just a few moments. And we want to make sure that our life and our lifestyle is built around these values, because what that does is it really allows us to live with that integrity, to live with the opportunity to make sure that every action that we're taking is more satisfying and more meaningful to us. And this will become more clear as we build upon these values over the course of the next few days through the activities that we're going to do. And so now I'm going to go ahead and ask that if you're comfortable, go ahead and in the comments, if you're on Facebook, write your top 5 that you came up with. And again, this is maybe around 5. If you haven't quite gotten 5 or you're a little bit more than that right now, that's okay. You know, we've got some wiggle room, but I'd love for you to go ahead and share those top 5. And then for those of you that are actually in the StreamYard room with us, if you'd like to hop on and turn your video on, turn your microphone on and share with us as well, I'd like to just leave the floor open for about 30 seconds before we transition into the next activity. And maybe no one feels comfortable with it, and that's fine too. All right, so we do have someone that says social justice, truthfulness, compassion, integrity, and wisdom. And I love that. And you're showing up just as Facebook user right now, so maybe it's Shelly there who's been interacting with us. But what I see, I mean, without even knowing exactly who this is someone who leads their life by making sure that they're making a difference through that truthfulness and that compassion and helping others. So my guess is that you are in some sort of serving position in your life, whether that's serving your family internally or serving the community externally. That social justice makes me think that it's a little bit more external. And it is, Shelly. Okay, great. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So as you can see, a lot of these can kind of tie together and really create our story. And if you find that your values, which is what was happening to me when I had my big break, your values are not in alignment with your everyday actions, you're going to feel a lot of dichotomy in your life. I'm also a certified ULA life coach, and we like to talk about something called accelerators, which is there are 7 values that people tend to lean towards to accelerate their life and make sure that they're in balance. And so that's one of those things is one of the ways to find balance is to use these values to really accelerate the choices in your life. All right, we've got someone else that said happy, fun, connections with family and friends, focus, and creativity. And that's Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that. I feel like you're someone I want to go out and have a good time with. That's fantastic. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Ashley. I'm going to mute myself. I'm also going to turn off my camera for a moment, Ashley, just so you are aware, because for some reason, even though my computer's plugged in, it's not charging properly. So I just have to troubleshoot some more technology issues as we go through this. Day 1, we're just going to be having lots of technology issues. So Ashley, over to you.
All right, and thank you. And I really love that this is all happening while we're talking about balance. It couldn't be more real life, right? We're talking about how we balance all the stresses and all the things that get thrown at us and how we hopefully can learn to do it with ease and with integrity and authenticity and all those things that we've been talking about. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to practice what we preach, right? So we're going to transition now into step 2 of this process. So the values really build the foundation for us, right? To help to go into the next piece, which is clearing out what no longer serves us and using those values that we know are important to us as the foundation for what we keep in our lives and what we don't keep in our lives. And there's a really fairly simple, but I think profound practice that I found from Louise Hay. And if you're familiar with her, she's long gone, unfortunately, but she has a wonderful book called You Can Heal Your Life, and there's a workbook to go with it. And she has this lovely practice around shoulds. And hopefully you may have heard the concept of don't should on yourself, right? And Louise talks about the fact that should is a really damaging word, because every time we say, I should have done that, or I should be doing that, we're essentially saying we are wrong. We are setting ourselves up for failure from the very start. We're saying we either are wrong, we were wrong, or we're going to be wrong. But when anyhow you look at it, we're just wrong. And that's really not a good feeling, right? To constantly set ourselves up to be wrong. It does not feel like we get ahead very easily. And it doesn't really give us a good sense of staying in balance, staying in integrity with our values. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by identifying those shoulds in our lives, because let's face it, we all have them. For me, when my kids were younger, it was a whole lot, and I was working. I mean, I'm still working, but they were young and I was working. It was a whole lot of, I should spend more time with my children. I should be a better parent. I should discipline more or discipline less. I should be stricter. I should be less strict. I should be all the things that I thought I really wasn't. Or actually, the other one that's really big for me is I am very much a spontaneous, go with the flow kind of person. And so organization skills are always a struggle for me. I should be more organized. I should be more on top of things. I should be that person that knows what's going on. And instead, I'm always skating in at the last minute. Those are my major shoulds. Now it's your chance to take a few minutes. If you have the workbook out, if not, you don't need the workbook. Just 5 shoulds. I should what? What comes to mind immediately? Again, not overthinking it, but just what are your shoulds? And I'll give you a minute or so 2 minutes. See, look at that. We're so on top of this. 2 minutes to list out your personal shoulds. And if you feel really brave, I'd love if you want to share them in the chat with us. And actually, if you are finished with your shoulds, just let us know in the chat, and that way we know we can move on. You might move a little quicker than 2 minutes. All right, anybody have an objection to moving on? Anybody still need a couple minutes? Maybe not a couple minutes, a few seconds to finish your shoulds. If not, let me know in the chat that you are done. Just type yes in the chat. Yes, that you're finished. Yay, there's one done. Okay, perfect. My guess is we've got some others. So as you're wrapping those up, let's just start talking about what the next step is, because we don't want to leave it at shoulds, right? We want to take it out of this should place and take it to a could. The word could, using that word instead of I should, it gives us a choice, right? It opens possibility. And in the space of could, we aren't wrong. We aren't wrong at all. So I want you to take all of your 5 shoulds and I want you to rewrite them. You don't have to write the whole thing, but I want you to write them out again with the word could instead. So for me, it would have been I should be more, I should manage my time better. And then the rewrite of that is I could manage my time better. And don't do anything with it yet. Just rewrite it. And as you rewrite them, just kind of notice how it feels to do that. Maybe even say it out loud. A lot of times for me, hearing it, speaking it kind of gives me a different sensation. So take a second, take a couple minutes to do that. All right, so as you are doing that, if you'll let me know when you're ready to move on. And actually, I'll just go ahead and tell you the next step of this process is after you write out your shoulds and then you switch it to I could, then for each one, answer the question, why haven't I? So for me, I should be better at time management. I could be better at time management. I haven't been better at time management because my natural state is to not be super rigid. And when I put very rigid structure and expectations around myself, I don't do it. So for me, the reason I haven't done it or haven't perhaps done it to my expectation is my expectations are unrealistic. So that's one way to process it through. I would love, hopefully, after you do your practice, that we could chat about that just a little bit. And I do hear some noise, so I don't know if anybody is muted, but if you're not, it might be good to mute. Okay, so I would love to know in the chat how this is going for you. Where are you at with it? What's coming up for you? And if you are live and you want to share, that's great too. I'm totally open to that. But let me know you're still out there and you're still with us.
Okay, Ashley, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey.
Hey. So my shoulds were I should make more money, have my dream job by now. I should have my weight or my body fluctuation stuff under control by now. I should navigate my family relationships better, and I should be happier and more grateful, especially during these times. And so I could change that to I could make more money. I could have my dream job. I could have my, weight regulated under control. I could navigate my family relationships better, and I could be happier and more grateful. And then the next step, I guess what my barrier is, I'm just going to pick one that doesn't seem as overwhelming, which is how could I be happier and more grateful? I just think that I need to use the tools that I already have in my toolbox and continue to explore and focus more on what I do have, because I have lost a lot during this pandemic, but I realized, grieving other losses prior to the pandemic. So it's just been this pile on, but I am still here. And I realize now more than ever just how resilient I am as a person. And even though I'm not where I would like to be, I'm not where I used to be. And I just, I'm not really sure about where the impatience is. Well, maybe I do know where the impatience is coming from. The impatience comes from just my critical self, which just goes back to the criticisms of my adults in my childhood. And so I'm letting those voices overrun me to the point that I'm focusing more on that than I am my gratitude, which I know would, if I thought about how many things are going right and how many things are at least not going wrong, I would be happier, because I'm feeling that energy shift right now as I speak it.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Lori. That's a big, deep share. And first, I want to honor you for having the bravery to do that. And what I'm really hearing there in your why haven't I is that to some degree there are practices and things that you could have been putting in place for yourself that you just maybe haven't been. And that's not a judgment, it's more of an awareness of, I think you mentioned, gratitude, right? Like sometimes it's really just, it's not that we have to eliminate something, it's from our list, it's identifying the barriers that have come up that for why we haven't, why it was a should when it could have been a could, right? Is that accurate? Did I capture that, what you're saying?
Yes, that is accurate. Yes, thank you. Thank you for paraphrasing a little bit better than I can.
No. It's okay that you shared. I didn't want to, necessarily repeat everything. I just wanted to make sure I was capturing it correctly, because I think that's a really good awareness for everyone else who's doing this work at the same time, that there's really two possibilities that come out of this. There's eliminating things we never wanted to do in the first place. Sometimes we do this practice and we say, well, I should do this, I could do it. And when we go, and why haven't I? When we answer those two questions, we go, well, I haven't done it because I don't really want to do it anyways. And so we could just mark that one right off the list. And I'm curious if there's anybody else who has something like that they'd like to share. But I think what you bring up is an even, not better, it's just a different way of looking at, it's not about eliminating everything, but it really is about honing the why haven't I, and keeping these kind of practices in place that get us to where we want to be, so it doesn't stay a should. I mean, when it's a should, it feels bad, but when it's a could and this is how, that feels totally different, right? That's back in that realm of possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Lori. And I am wondering, I do see some comments and some things. Does anybody have another example that they might like to share, either in the chat or live? Maybe something that you figured out that you do want to eliminate. You just really have been doing it because you felt obligated or for some other reason.
Ashley, I'm going to chime in for a moment, because we have someone who's written in the comments that their quiet mind is still working on them, even though it looks like they're not doing anything. And I think it's important to honor that, right? This is a very intrinsic practice, meaning you have to dig deep and we have to become aware of, what really is in line with our values, what isn't in line with our values, what society has deemed that we should be doing. I have been doing a lot of work recently on mindset, and a lot of that stems because I'm a woman. And so these values that we're talking about, can be male or female, no matter, or cisgender, bigender, whatever you identify as, is across the board. It's all inclusive, these values are. But the mindset that I've been working on has specifically been around being a female and the societal impact that happens because of the expectations that we as females tend to have forced upon us, these societal expectations. So when you think about the way that the female, as the basic historical definition of female has been, we have always been forced into caretaker roles, whether that's caretaker of our family, caretaker of others. It wasn't even until, and this statistic shocked me, until the 1970s that we could have a bank account in our own name without a male jointly occupying that bank account with us. Not until the 1970s. And that's because we were never supposed to be in charge of anything other than the caring of others. And so there's a lot of societal expectations for me. A lot of my shoulds stem around, I should be providing more for my family. I should be making dinner every night. I should be doing, being a better mother, as the societal definition is, for my children. But I know in my mind, when I am true to myself and in myself, in every atom of my body, that I am not made to be a stay-at-home mother. I need something that I can hold and own and contribute to society as a whole, rather than just to my family as a whole. And so a lot of my shoulds are around breaking out those societal expectations and changing them to, I could do that, but I choose not to because it's not in line with my values. And so this is a long process, and we're asking you to force this into a short period of time. And so I'm going to step away because I've been on my diatribe now. But I just want you to know, take your time, be quiet, be still with yourself, do this exercise, after the lights are out and you're sitting in bed if you need to. Take as much time as you need. All right. And Andre's asking, I'm curious to know how you both feel about societal norms changing and disrupting established metrics. Ooh, Andre, do you have another hour at least? Andre, I think you know how I feel about this. So Andre and I are close friends, and I'm going to let Ashley take the stage for this one for a moment, and then I will chime in because I know you know how I feel.
Yeah, I suspect we're pretty similar on this. I resonate with a lot of what you just said about that, perfect parenting thing. That's been a huge piece I've had to overcome. And as a woman in the work world, I really struggle with what is considered to be the norms of what is expected of us. And I have struggled in the sense that I don't like it and I butt up against it on a constant basis. And I feel like I'm literally beating my head against a brick wall on an almost daily basis, with feeling like, okay, so full transparency, I felt like a disruptor from the very start of my awareness, and I've never been allowed to really express that. And so that's been a huge piece of my growth and awareness forever, is this, I see what's going on around me and I really want it to be different, and I feel like I've been constantly squashed in that. So my whole arc has been how to stand in my truth around this and be one of my values is authenticity. How do I really feel authentic in the world, and to really push up against those norms? On the one hand, I really I have my own natural fear about being visible and being stuck out there and being the one to say that something should be different, because when everybody's saying no. And then on the other hand, it literally kills me inside to stay in this one small space and to not share that with other people, which is, I guess, the foundation of my work, even though it's come along very quietly in the way I've approached it, gentle, as people have said. The more I do this work, the more I learn about, we haven't even talked today about energy, but the more I learn about the balance and the energy of everything, and the combination, as we said, of how important it is to have the feminine energy into everything, the more fired up I get about how much better just make the world in so many ways for men, women, and everybody in between, and on the outsides of that.
Thank you for sharing, Ashley. I know that I kind of threw you under the bus by forcing you to answer that right away. But I knew we had similar views as well. So I'm going to chime in just quickly and, add, for those that don't know me, that I'm really excited about the way that things are shifting. And I believe that our values as a society as a whole are changing, and they will continue to change. And the energy forecasted for this entire year is for people to start showing up as their true selves and speaking their truth. And I've heard that in so many different platforms, and that is true, in society as well as in corporate worlds. And I say that because most recently, and I'm going to give Norton a huge shout out here, I've been working with Norton doing some consulting work, and I heard a very senior leader, VP, say, I want my individuals and the individuals of all of Norton to show up as their true selves. If that means checking in with your boss and saying, look, I'm exhausted. I was up with my kids all night because, my 2-year-old's potty training, or my infant's teething, or, I'm caring for an elderly parent, an aging parent, and they had a rough night. If you can show up as your true, authentic self and speak your truth, then we will all be better balanced and be better able to lift each other up to be successful as a whole, whether that's in society or in the corporate world or anywhere else. And so this shift in expectations, where a Black woman doesn't have to show up and pretend to act like a Black man or a white man in order to be respected in the workplace. That is a huge, massive, beautiful shift that we're having. She can show up as her true self. And those stereotypes will start to wash away as people see our true selves as well. And the biases, those unconscious biases, are slowly going to start to shift, and they'll change. They'll always be unconscious bias, but the traditional ones will start to shift and wash away as we raise our generations, the future generations in the society and in these leadership roles where everyone shows up as their true selves. So, okay, I said I could talk about it for an hour. I really could. And I'm getting chills just talking about it. So I'm going to back off there. Do we have any other questions or comments or thoughts on that topic or anything else before we get into our reflection questions? Because that was beautiful. I appreciate that really heart-centered and authentic question. All right, Ashley, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what you said is one of the things I really think has been powerful about this pandemic, even though on so many levels it has been a collective trauma and there's been collective grief, and I don't want to minimize any of that. At the same time, I think it has amplified all of these things that we're talking about, not just the lack of balance. I mean, women have been screaming about this for years, and many other people. But all of this lack of awareness of what people are really going through. And I feel like this forcing us, the initial piece for me was all of a sudden we're all in our own homes. We're on technology, and technology, as we've seen today, it levels the playing field, right? You could be the CEO of something and you might be a goofball behind the computer, and your cat's walking through. I usually have a cat that walks through every meeting. And I just feel like in so many ways, I know it hasn't solved all the problems, but I think it has made us aware. It was a major step that we were never going to take as a society without literally a pandemic to force us into it. Obviously, there's a whole lot of work around that, but to do. Clearly, there's a lot of work, but my hope, and when everybody started saying, oh, we're going to go back to normal, I don't want to go back to normal. I don't want it to be the normal that we had before, which is really the basis of why, Erin and I are sitting here today. And I'm with you. We could do hours on this topic, and I'm sure most people don't have hours to spend, or maybe they do, but maybe not today. We could do that another day. So anyways, I just want to kind of circle back to that activity, and really the reflection questions were around, and we've sort of touched on this, is going back and taking an opportunity to look through the work we did today and really think about your shoulds, the things you listed, and maybe some more things that come up as you reflect on this, and look at where they don't match your values and really walk them through those questions, switching it to a could, and then asking why haven't I, and reflecting on what that really looks like in your life. And then paying attention to how many shoulds you can either drop from your list, or as Lori and I said, maybe what practices do you need to put into place to make it a possibility rather than a should, a could rather than a should, and really make it doable if it's something that you don't want to drop, but you don't want it to hang out there. So I just invite you, as you reflect overnight before we start tomorrow, to really think through that, and maybe we'll have an opportunity if you have anything to share. Actually, what I really want to invite you to do is, if you're comfortable, in whichever group that you're in, you're watching from, post a reflection from today. What came up for you? What What was your aha around the shoulds and the coulds and the values and all of this that we've been talking about? Post that in the group so that others can share. There's so much power and synergy, as you can see, in having these conversations and asking these questions. And I know there's a lot of passion around what we have talked about today. So this is your chance before we wrap up. If there's any other last minute questions, and I do see there's a comment that the Microsoft Ability Summit speaks a lot to the components we just touched on. And I'd really love to hear more about that at some point, because I think Erin and I both are really passionate about helping organizations, individuals and organizations, really shift how they handle leadership, but from a human component, from that human perspective and that whole person perspective. So
yes, so I will chime in and piggyback off on that, Ashley. So thank you for sharing about the Microsoft Ability Summit. Please do chime in, let us know, post something in whatever group you're in, and let us know what that is all about, because that's fantastic. And that really is our mission. Ashley and I talked about this when we started brainstorming ideas, and then we're like, maybe we should do something with this, right? We talked about changing the world from the inside out, so to speak. How can we connect with leaders and better balance our energy of this masculine and feminine, and harness all of the positives that came out of COVID. And all of us, the reason why we call this Rise Up, and we have the Phoenix as the symbol, is how can we rise from the ashes of 2020? And, the low points that so many of us have, and really turn this into this beautiful, wonderful thing where we are even rising above where we were before 2020 even happened. And we are moving the world in this whole shifting perspective to this better balance where we can all be our true selves and show up holistically as our true selves. And so we are going to dig into this as we move forward over the course of the next couple of days. For those that have not registered, that would like to register and receive the workbook, again, you can kind of see that the workbook is a value add. You can do the activities without it. But if you would like to register and receive that workbook, please go ahead and do so. I know I put it in the comments, but feel free to reach out to us as well. And we will get that taken care of and make sure that that is in your inbox. Day 2 is going to be all about, if we go back, and I'll throw up the banner for it, right, is going to be all about connecting. So we at the Intuitive Leadership Center, we have 3 foundational words, so to speak, and these 3 components, which is clear, connect, and then create. And that is how we hope to continue to work and to shift this energy. And so now we have cleared out our shoulds. We've thought about where we're out of balance within our values. Tomorrow, we're going to connect. We're going to be here in this same spot. You can sign into StreamYard and join us here, or you can watch us live in either of our groups. We are streaming live in either group. I'm also streaming live on my YouTube channel, which I think maybe has like 1 video, but I figured it was another place for people to access if they're not on Facebook, right? So that is there as well. And so noon Eastern tomorrow is going to be the connect piece. And then we will round everything out with the create piece on Friday at noon Eastern as well. So join us in whatever capacity you can. These recordings, because we went live, are just going to be available in that group. And so thank you so much. I appreciate this feedback. Thank you to all of you that chimed in. I'm seeing this feedback come in. Respond to the emails as well. Let us know in the groups. If you receive the text message from us, we, no kidding, are on the other side of those text messages, and we will respond to you. So we'd love the feedback. We'd love to know what you're looking for and what you would like to see, because we would like to continue to provide value in this manner. And we do move from Rise Up to Intuitive Leaders Rising, which is a course we have created, a 12-week group coaching course as well. That can be an easy transition for you in the future if you'd like. But we want to continue to provide these little mini courses as well. And thank you, Sheila, for those kind words. We are so blessed to have you here, and we can't really say thank you enough. So keep the communication flowing. Let's all show up as our true selves, and we will see you again tomorrow. Ashley, any?
Well, you cut out on that last one. But yes.
Michael, I hit the mute button too quickly.
We're getting all excited. We're going to mute ourselves and make sure we don't have feedback. Okay. No, I just want to echo what Erin has said. This has been a great opportunity, and I'm so excited to have all this interaction. And your really honest and courageous and vulnerable feedback has been, or comments, in a room full of basically strangers has been amazing. And I'm excited to talk some more tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to dig a little deeper and really kind of help. I see the comment from you, Shelley, about your shoulds being self-abusive. And I think tomorrow some of that will help dig a little deeper into how we can kind of keep working on that process. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time. It's been so great to be with you today and with you, Erin, and we will see you tomorrow.